Oop, wait. Alright, welcome again, fellow druids. We're going to talk about what to do when you're winning the game. And more specifically, what not to do. So let me back up and let's talk about what I mean by winning, what to do when you're winning the game. And the first thing you probably want to try to do is be very good about identifying that you are actually winning the game. Sometimes it's really obvious, right? You've left the opponent with only like 2 pieces in their caster. You're probably winning the game. But in other cases, it may not be so obvious, right? And you need to really look at the scenario. You need to look at where the attrition is, and you need to evaluate the table space. And then remember, there's no bonus points. There's not really any bonus points for being the person who ends with the most stuff on the table. You win the game or you lose the game, right? And so identify where you're at in that game, and you can do that by, again, seeing where you're at in the scenario, seeing where they can go from there, right? So say you're up 3 scenario points. Obviously, you need to get another 2 to win and prevent them from getting any. And if you can do that, that's great. However, if to get that 1 more point, you really have to risk your warlock, for example, that's probably not something you want to do. So looking and saying, like, I'm ahead on scenario. What do they have that can prevent me from continuing my scenario victory? Do they have something that can assassinate me? Things like that. Where am I at on attrition? Again, right? Well, you know, how many heavy warjacks do they have left, or warbeasts? How much of their infantry is left? How much work can that infantry do? Right? So against, if you're down to say Balder 2 and a Woldrath and Megalith, which is not very many models for you, but all they have left on the table are, trying to think of a good example, gun mages, right? You're winning the game. If they have their caster and gun mages left, you're probably winning the game. So those first identify that situation, right? And next then is what you want to do when you identify that situation is start thinking about your opponent's mindset. And this is something I'm doing this video primarily because I constantly need to remind myself of this. And the thing to realize is when your opponent is losing the game, all of a sudden those 10, 20, 30, 40% assassinations that would otherwise be a bad choice for them to make, that they've probably passed up throughout the game, or they would normally pass up throughout a normal game where they feel like they're just, you know, doing okay still, are suddenly the best and maybe only play they have. And if that is the only play they have, they will be going for it. And so what you need to do is look at the situation to make sure that you're not A, incentivizing them to do that if you can avoid it, but B, making sure that you realize whatever you're doing, that keeping your caster alive is more important than continuing to win. You're probably going to continue winning anyways, right? And, you know, this is the time to not get greedy, basically, where, say they have, I'll just talk about a game that this happened to me. I was playing Una 2 against a person playing the Dreamer, and they had, this was like this was in the Warbeast theme. They had 4 heavies and 2 or 3 lights and some Kravitz and sort of a normal loadout for her. And I got to a point in that turn where I had cleared 2 of the 3 zones, maybe even all 3 zones. I think 2 of the 3, and I killed 2 of Dreamer's heavies, both of her lights, some of the Kravitz, and I can pretty trivially kill the objective. And at that point, and I potentially can kill a 3rd heavy, but I need to buff up one of my Griffins. And at that point, the series of events that happened here is sort of specific, but basically I ended up using too much fury on Una when I should not have, and then miscalculated where on the table with Zero Fury. On top of that, I miscalculated on the table with Zero Fury where she should stand. But realistically speaking, when I started casting spells with her, I had already killed. I had already been able to kill 2 of the other heavies, 1 of the lights. I was in a position to be able to do more than that. I probably could have just camped 6 Fury. Or only spent 2 additional Fury, something like that. And that would have been if I had done that, even without losing, without killing that 3rd heavy, which I did do, I'm not going to lose the game when he tries to go for his 25% assassination run. As it was, I did, because he did, and he got the 25%er, right? And you're like, oh, 25%, 3 out of 4 times you win that game. That's true. But 100 out of 100 times I win that game if Una doesn't die and I just keep working my way to the victory. So while yes, you can throw your hands up and be like, he got lucky. That's ultimately not going to be the best scenario for you as you play tournament games to maximize the number of times you win. And this is especially as you start getting better and better at the game, this is something you want to definitely be keeping in mind, which is don't cost yourself the victory by not realizing what your opponent is going to be able to do next. And frequently, as the game goes like that, the situation your opponent is going to feel like they are in is that they have to go for an assassination. And once they have to go for that assassination, you need to be as safe as possible. Even if beasts are going to frenzy, even if you're not going to get an optimal activation of a unit or a solo or something like that without throwing the spell out there that you wanted to, sometimes even if it's the main shtick that you do, that doesn't mean that it's the right play. And so make sure you're really watching those things. Make sure you're putting defensive buffs on yourself if you have them, for example. This is the time for that. Things of that nature. So anyways, this is just this is going to be a pretty short video, but these are the things to consider when you are ahead in a game. Is you don't want to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, as it were, by leaving yourself in a spot where you're more vulnerable than you need to. Look at the terrain, look at your defensive buffs, look at the number of transfers you can have, look at the ways you can block line of sight, look at the things that can get to you. Make sure you kill arc nodes first type of situation, for example. Or stop spells, or stop range attacks, or etc. So anyway, that's what you should definitely be looking at when you're in that situation. Thanks for watching again.